I hope you're ready for a lot of terms now. Honestly speaking, I struggled a lot with most about what I'm talking to you now about. Like 2 years ago, I had no clue, no, that's wrong. Then we wrote the book. 4 years ago, I had absolutely no clue what FAIR means, what Darwin Core is, etc., etc. I learned a lot in the meantime, and now I think it's so easy that I can actually explain it using Lego figures. I hope at the end of this day, all of you can understand it so easily that you can also explain it to anyone else what these principles are. So coming back, this 10, 20 years ago, most of us, most curators, were actually happy when they had a computer and put in the fantastic object data or the fantastic objects and the data, the analogous data connected to them, into a kind of sheet, usually Excel or maybe some more advanced ones already in a database. But why did we do that? We mainly did that because we wanted to find objects that we were responsible for in a more easy and straightforward way, and especially when someone else was asking us, do you have this or that object? We would like to have it in an efficient way to find all these objects. Well then, that means we made our own structure, I made my priorities, I used my standards that I understood the most, but honestly speaking, it was not even compatible with the curator sitting in the next office. We should change that because now we would like to actually use all the data we have, to share the data, to bring the data together, and not only in our institution, but honestly speaking, worldwide. And we would like to have this in an efficient way. So if we have 4 people in 4 different countries, we have different collections, different information, and so on and so forth. We would like to have kind of standards, a set of rules to make all this data compatible, to make it much more easy to understand the data of the others, etc., etc. And if we actually manage to do that, even machines can read this data and exchange the data. And if we manage that, things will be much more efficient, but we have to put in a little bit of work to get there. This is actually what FAIR data means. Nothing but that computers can use it, exchange it, that the data are not only for us, but also researchers outside our museums can actually use them, can exchange them, and also for projects maybe that we are not aware of and that we don't think of at all. To help doing that, we need a set of rules, and these rules are the standards and the vocabularies. I don't want to go into every single standard, every vocabulary, but I would like to show you, based on the objects, institutions, collections, and also persons, how we can do that. And I will only talk about Darwin Core and not about ABCDEFG. Essentially, everything I tell about Darwin Core is also applicable for ABCDEFG, but I think Darwin Core already covers with 180 terms most of what we need. And if our needs are not covered yet, then it is worth it to check out ABCDEFG. There you have another 1,800 or so possibilities. Good luck with that. Darwin Core. It's actually, I struggled a lot because if anyone has been on this homepage before, I don't get it. Seriously, I'm not nerdy enough for that, but it's not that difficult. Darwin Core, what it does is, when we just imagine your data, every single line in your sheet is an entry or an object, and every column, that's kind of a set of information or one entity of information. What Darwin Core does is nothing else but for every column, it gives you a definition what to type in there, so that everyone, no matter where, puts in the exact same data. That in the country column is actually the country and not the country with the canton and the location. It's very easy, actually. So, an example. And now we're at the objects part. This is a spider I collected a couple of years ago. This is my label, including lots of mistakes. I put the mistakes there on purpose, and I would like to put these into a database. So what Darwin Core provides me with is a set of fields. It's around 10 to 15. Here you can see 10 of them covering verbatim data. You just copy-paste one-to-one what is on your label into these fields. Then, for example, every verbatim event date actually includes the date when these specimens were collected. But it also includes something like Schweiz with 3 sets in the verbatim location. It's wrong, we all know, but we put it in there just one-to-one. Now, the good thing would be if you move your data that you have at home, you translate them to the verbatim original data, and already then we can compare the data among countries or between countries, because the recorded by is everywhere the same, or will be everywhere the same, and computers can already exchange this data. But it's not the end of the story, of course. We need a little bit more. If we want to use the data for research, some of these fields or some of the data have to be more standardized. And then we get to the interpreted data. So I translate my verbatim data into data that are in a certain set. So the country, well, this should be country, is not Schweiz or Switzera, Switzerland, or Swiss or whatever, but it's just CH. CH is just generalized, internationally available, this 2-character thing. Why exactly this one? That will be, I will talk about that a little later. If we have these 20 to 70 fields, depending on how complex your data are, we have at the end a set of information that is very easy to compare. And the good thing is, if you use Darwin Core, you have these terms here, like institution code, and that's not a mistake that the C is big. These are the terms that you should use in your database. These are the so-called properties, and with that, you connect the NMB with the institution code property, and that means the computer can exchange the information. That's what GBIF does, for example, to make all your data at one place. So now I come to the CH. Why is it CH? And this is now the vocabularies. What vocabularies can we use? I mean, we could use CH, CHE, whatever for this abbreviation of a country. Here, the vocabularies help us that we have only CH everywhere in the world. For example, now the institution. We would like to have the vocabulary for the institution code. Institution code, you can see down here, that's the acronym of your museum. You can have your museum, for example, maybe has 4 abbreviations because you're covering 4 languages. But only one should be used. And to register that, you can go to SwissCollNet, and everyone that applied for a grant already in SwissCollNet has done that. Those that didn't, contact Pascal to get you your official abbreviation. This registry is doing it for the whole world, and then your institution has only one acronym. It's the same like the countries, and we have registries for all or for very different of these fields or terms. What you can also do if you enter data in your database, you can check out what other acronyms have been used. You go, for example, to SwissCollNet, you check if you exist or the other houses exist. If not, you can suggest an institution. I don't want to go into detail here. The collections, it's exactly the same story. And most of us did that already. The important message here is the identifiers have to be unique. We don't want to have at the end, again, 10 abbreviations for the same institution. And at the moment, worldwide there are initiatives to actually set all these standards one by one, and we have a lot already at hand. So last but not least, the persons. Persons are a little tricky. You all know from your databases, for example, that persons are having sometimes different abbreviations. Sometimes you have the middle name also. Sometimes the family name is differently typed. The worst thing that can happen is Stefan Müller. Stefan Müller, we have, no, that's not the worst, but Stefan Müller probably exists very, very often. So which Stefan Müller at the end published this article or collected that object? And everyone in every museum then writes in the Stefan Müller he or she has, maybe sometimes also with a CV. When I do that, I have work to put in there, and then probably in Geneva there is another Stefan Müller that collected objects, and they have to do the same thing again. This is not efficient. To help that, we have also a registry or different registries for persons, and they generate unique identifiers. So instead of putting the data at your place, you put it there and then link it with the unique identifier. How can you do that? If a person published a book already, the libraries have done that. If that book ended up in a library, YF already generated a code for them. It will look like that. For example, Charles Darwin. There were around 250 Charles Darwins already in the databases, but we know it's only the one. This is the YF ID of the Charles Darwin. Put in that into your database, and you will get all the information about Charles Darwin just for free. If it's not a published book there, but the person is alive, you can register yourself on ORCID. I would highly recommend you, if you didn't do that yet, do it. It's a 5-minute thing. You go there, you register, you get your ORCID number, and then you can put all the data you think is important for other researchers, other persons there. It can be your CV, it can be nothing but a publication or just your name and your affiliation. So that helps a lot. And last but not least, often we are talking about persons that, at least I have a lot of objects in the collections I'm responsible for, of people that are deceased and probably don't have such a number. Then Wikidata is there, and that's the standard where we can use and put the data for deceased persons. Ivan Hugentobler, it's a random name, I don't know if who that is. We'll get a number there, and I can put information I know about Hugentobler from our collections there. And if in Geneva you have also specimens of Hugentobler, you just add this permanent link or Wikidata in your database, and you get all this information about the person. That's it. Well, I hope it's easier for you now. For me, well, not so sure yet. What I needed is, because I don't like the homepage of Darwin Core, etc., what I did, and thankfully Yvonne and Loic helped to do that, I translated the whole Darwin Core thing in an Excel sheet. I'm more comfortable with that, including every field, the properties, so the names of the fields that will be used in the database afterwards, the definitions, some examples, vocabulary, and then I added a couple of filters to help me in the jungle of the 180 fields to find those that I really need. And this filter is just 2 clicks with the auto filter. You have either verbatim data that covers the essential things, or the interpretational data, if I would like to put in a bit more effort into the data. And more importantly, a set of priorities, 10 fields, first priority, covers most of what I can, copy, paste into an Excel sheet, and then people can type in and translate the data. Second priority, a bit more. Third priority, the fields you never use. It helped me, and I would just like to show you this way. it's actually not a big deal to use Darwin Core if we know why we use it and what for and how it can help us. And at the end, I think we make the world a little more efficient using that. And I hope for you it helped a little bit now too. And it's so easy that, as you see, children can use it like Lego. I hope you have some questions. I don't know if we have time left, but I hope it helped a little bit to understand it.
So thanks very much, Holger. When I presented you, when I introduced you, I forgot that maybe 5% of the audience do not know you, and I should have said more about you. So now I can do it quickly. So you're curator for the invertebrates at the Natural History Museum of Basel, and you are now the head of life sciences. Sorry for missing this just earlier.
No worries.
Questions for Holger after this nice presentation?
When you are when you are programming a database, would you use the variable name in your database to make the tables, or would you make an export with these names so that it's exchangeable between computers? Would you just adapt the export or the database at all? And and when I look at Darwin Core and ABCD, maybe I saw it wrong, but I feel that there are many names in ABCD, in Darwin Core, I don't know, which turned obsolete over the years. So if you would implement them into your tables and then they get obsolete later, how would you handle this? And then I have a third question. For example, if in ABCD there is something like author or date, then they give several suggestions with data format. I feel that the only thing that is standardized is the name of the variable, and not really a technical definition. How long is the character at maximum? What is the data format? How is the person entered? I feel there is not enough specification on how to do it.
I probably will need 25 minutes to answer all the three questions of you. So maybe we can discuss second and the third question in the break. The first question, you have to change your database a little bit. I mean, most of the characters, some of the verbatim things, or the verbatim variables or entries, these are very often already one-to-one as you have it in your database. Those that are interpreted, you probably have to change, or most likely you have to adapt the data. So what you then need, you have to redefine your columns, kind of, to be in that language or to stay there. And you have to do that before you export it. You can make a second step. That's often what is done when you get the data to GBIF. But I would recommend that you kind of change your database and how the data are administered in your database. It takes a little bit of effort, honestly speaking, or not just a little bit, but I think it's worth it. You can also afterwards automate the exports to GBIF, etc. Yeah, but that's a tricky thing. That's, honestly speaking, I cannot answer you that. That should someone do from GBIF or so, that really know how these standards change over time. It's a big problem, or it is rather a problem in ABCD EFG. In Darwin Core, there are about 10% obsolete. But I think you can still use them. I mean, the information is still there. But honestly, I cannot answer that in a way that is sufficient or satisfactory.
There's time for one last question.
Thanks, Holger. I have a question regarding the registration of people. You showed that there is several options. And what is your base choice when one person is in several databases? Which one will you recommend to use?
If there are several, that's actually Wikidata is meant for that. Wikidata includes all the identifiers of a person. So if you put it to the other way around, if you're alive, you put it to ORCID, it will also show up in Wikidata at the end. So this is kind of the hub that connects everything. But to be honest, I mean, for us, we are alive. It helps a lot. Then I would highly recommend that you get an ORCID number. That's all the researchers, or if you publish, then they require very often now that you have an ORCID, depending on the journal. And it's used more and more also just for people that work in collections and in research and are maybe not even publishing. And the good thing here is you have the complete control of what information is there about you, because you're the only one that can work on your entry. And in, for example, Wikidata, you can enter data for others. So there is much less control. And in VIAF is even less. There the librarians do everything for you. And I found wrong things about me there already. And I have no clue how I can change that. Yeah, but that's an automated thing.
Okay, thanks a lot, Holger.